Don't get me wrong, Claude Code is brilliant. It's one of the best copilot slash companion any developer can ask for right now, but it comes with its own problems. And one of the ones that I find super frustrating is the fact that while Claude Code does a great job at solving problems, putting together a solution to a complex problem, I don't think it does a great job at helping you make sense of an existing solution. And here's what I mean. You have a code to review, you have a solution you want to understand, you have a large code base that you've just been thrown into, and you're trying to understand how this code base works. If you rely on Cloud Code to do that, you're going to spend so much time being unproductive versus what I'm going to compare it to in this video. Now, that said, let's jump in and see what the problems I have with Cloud Code is and how we can use Cursor to solve those problems. And this brings me to the point why till today I have both of these subscriptions. Most of my agentic workflow still lives in Cloud Code, but every now and then I find myself jumping to Cursor just for this particular problem. Now, to illustrate this problem, what I have here is the Hono code base. Hono is a server framework for Node.js. You don't really need to know what it does to understand the problem I'm trying to solve here. But if you've ever used Express, it's just a modern version of Express. Now, I'm always curious. I've always been curious about how middleware's routing work in both Express and in this case, Hono. And I wanted to understand how it worked in this project. And I could simply go to Cloud Code and ask Cloud Code, how does Hono's middleware system work? Walk me through what happens when a request goes through multiple middleware like Logger and JWT authentication. Immediately, we start to experience the friction that comes with using Cloud Code to try to understand any code base or try to understand any solution. At this point, you and I are just sitting here waiting for Cloud Code to pull a picture together with the Explore agent before we can actually understand how middlewares work in Hono. Now, imagine if you had to do this for a ton of features, a ton of pull requests, a ton of solutions. We are still waiting. It's been a minute, 10 seconds, a minute, 20 seconds, and we're still waiting for this solution to come back. And we just wanted to understand just one part of this code base, just how features, or rather, just how middlewares work. Now, after 1 minute, 38 seconds, it comes back with a brilliant explanation. Of course, it will come back with a brilliant explanation. It's Opus 4.5. But the only problem then is that it starts to walk me through how middlewares are registered, how request flows after they've been registered, but then I have zero context of where this is. For me to figure this out, I have to first of all copy this file name, go to my code editor, search for this file, open it, then jump to line 156 before I can then try to make sense of what Cloud Code was trying to walk me through here. Now, the problem with this is for every single code example, for every single code snippet, for every single file, I have to go search for that file, jump to that line, and try to pull together what the context is to be able to understand what's happening. And this is where the friction gets even deeper. It gets more frustrating. The fact that for every single snippet, for every single file, for every single code example, I have to find the file name and then I have to jump to the line number before I can make sense of the picture that Claude Code was trying to paint here. So for me to understand this compose function, I also have to copy the compose.ts file name, go to the code editor, open that file, and God help me find wherever line this dispatch function is, or at least find the function and try to make sense of what Cloud Code was trying to explain here. Now, what if it doesn't have to be this way? What if we don't have to wait for 1 minute, 38 seconds for us to understand just a simple feature? And secondly, we find ourselves in an environment that allows us to jump into context immediately and make sense of a picture without having to do the manual, very friction-heavy work of finding the file name, jump into the code snippet to just get those pieces, those components we need together to solve or to understand how a solution works. And this is where Cursor comes in. Cursor has its agent built into the code editor, which means that if it's walking you through a solution, it's going to show you the snippets. And when you click on the snippet, it will jump straight into the file and to the location where that snippet is. And then immediately you can start building that picture. You can easily switch back to using your code editor's intelligence to understand how something works, or jump back to Composer to help you explain something even deeper. But most importantly, what I really love about Cursor is Cursor Composer. It's not the best at solving problems. As a matter of fact, I haven't had any luck building anything relatively close to a good solution with Composer. But it does a great job at helping you understand fast how something works. I've not seen anything as fast as Composer. At the same time, it does a brilliant job, like I already mentioned, at pulling pictures together to help you just get the pieces you need to make sense of a problem. Let me just show you what I mean. If I jump back to my code editor here and ask the same exact question, it's going to take Composer a relatively small amount of time to pull all of these pieces together and then look, it's already presenting a solution. Now, I don't think Cursor shows you how long it takes before it finishes its response, but you can clearly see that it's ridiculously faster. It's just night and day how long it takes Cursor to complete this same request compared to Claude Code. Now, once I've jumped back to the top of this file, I can start making sense of how middlewares work, or how a middleware would work in Honor. And to do that, all I have to do is literally just start reading what we have here. But the cool thing is that when I get to a code snippet, I can always click on it to jump to where that code snippet was uh, created in context. And if I wanted to read through this function, I can then spend some time understanding what's happening here. I can jump into get path using my regular IntelliSense features and back to the function where it was defined and then keep going. And of course, if I need to understand any other thing, I could go back to Composer and maybe ask more questions. I could ask, how does get path work? And does the same thing, goes through the function very fast, and before I'm done speaking, it would have pulled all the information I need to understand how get path works. And that's pretty much it. This is the only reason why I pay for Cursor, literally, just to be able to use Cursor this way, make sense of an existing solution, or review the code for an existing code that someone else wrote or that Claude Code wrote, and I wanted to make sure that it's safe, it works the way I expect it to work, and just generally review that particular feature or code base. That said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.